Hi, I'm Gary Streigler. One time I worked with a guy that his belt on his nail apron broke and he just got a rope and tied it together. What he was really telling everybody is, this is just my job. I'm not really proud of my profession. So I've always tried to really have good tools. For one thing, it makes life easier, but also it just says I'm proud of what I'm doing. So what I want to talk about today is kind of one of the most important and one of the most personal tools that any carpenter can have, and that's his nail apron. And you know, it doesn't matter whether you're a full-time professional or just a really serious do-it-yourselfer, having a good nail apron makes a big difference. Now, I'm going to say right now that I don't always do as well as I know. If I'm working in the shop or doing some small project, sometimes I kind of get started without putting my nail apron on, and I always find myself looking around for the pencil or the tape measure. I am pretty confident that I could say that if I'm wearing my nail apron, I'm at least 5%, maybe 10% more efficient than if I don't. And why is that? Because all my tools are right where I know where they're going to be. Now, I want to say first of all that there's basically two different types of nail aprons, unless you want to count the old school carpenters who had like coveralls that had an apron here in front of it. But basically, you've either got the front bags that hook in the back, or you've got the side bags. And I've always been someone who liked the side bags because basically my tools are just right here, and if I'm bending over, I don't have all that stuff in front of me. So I'm just going to talk about this. This is an Occidental nail apron that I've had for several years, and it's probably going to be the last one I ever have because it is amazing quality. One of the things I really liked about it is I got to customize what I want. And again, I'm a leather guy. They make them in all kinds of high performance materials, but I'm still kind of a leather guy. And right down to the size belt that I got, I was able to customize it. Now, let's talk about what tools that I carry. And I don't have a tool, in every compartment, but I just want to share the tools that, for me, and I'm primarily a trim carpenter, what are important to me, and how the nail apron has all those tools right where I can get to them. The first thing is a hammer, and as a trim carpenter, I've always carried a fairly small hammer. This is an S-wing. I've carried a plumb before, but it's either a 12 or 13 ounce hammer. I kind of like the curved claw as opposed to a rip claw. Rip claw is really more of a framing tool, and if you're carrying a hammer this size, you don't really need to worry about that. The second thing, and again, these are on the right-hand side because I'm right-handed. You could order this left-handed. But anyway, the second thing is the tape measure. I don't like to carry much more than a 16-foot tape measure. I want one that just fits in my hand like so. I do like one that's, it's a little bit wider, and as I get older, the bigger numbers are kind of nice too. So, and one that's, fairly rigid, it'll stand out a good ways. But again, 16-footer is generally good enough for me. So as I just keep working on this side, of course, the pencil may seem like, kind of a simple tool, but it's pretty important. I've gotten to where I like these slightly bigger tools and pencils and the round ones. So I'm going to jump over here on the other side real quick. One of the things I like to carry too is a pencil sharpener so that I can keep, a pretty fine point on my pencil. And that's pretty small. Utility knife is another important thing. I know guys that carry those ones that fold up and all that, but for me, I want just a utility knife. Now, I do like the retractable ones that I can keep right here. Now, this may be a little bit of a surprise to most people, a small pair of vice grips. And that's because it seems like there's almost always, the clamp on the air hose came loose, or I need to tighten something up. And although these aren't quite as good as a wrench, there's a whole lot of little repairs that I can do with this pair of vice grips. Now, one of the things I really like about this nail apron is it gave me the opportunity to have a couple of these tool holders on the back. And if it was on me, the chisel would be right here because I'm going to grab up my hammer with my right hand, grab my chisel with the left hand. And this chisel is not a fantastic chisel. Sometimes we refer to them as our beater chisels because I can do some chiseling with it, but it can also be a pry bar or have lots of other jobs. I try not to use it as a screwdriver, but so this is an okay chisel. It's good quality, but I don't try and keep it super sharp. I would tell you that one of the things I discovered, you know, especially if you're getting ready to do a big job, it's a great idea just to go buy a pretty good set of chisels. They're really, really nice and sharp, and maybe someday I'm going to do a video on kind of sharpening for people that aren't sharpening experts, because I am not a sharpening expert, but I can keep something relatively sharp. Anyway, so there's my kind of my beater chisel that's multi-purpose. It does have a metal end on it. I call these my nail nippers. They're kind of a diagonal side cutter, but the biggest thing I use these for is when I run a nail out where I'm not supposed to, I'll grab hold of that nail and move it back and forth, and unfortunately that happens more often than you'd think. So this is mainly for working nails that have broken, and what I don't do is clip the nails off because that leaves a little sharp point. All right. I always like to keep a small glue bottle also because, you know, if I'm doing trim work, there are a lot of the joints that I try to glue those joints, especially the outside corners of baseboard and such. Also, I glue my casing trim joints. And if I'm working in the shop building a cabinet too, it can be handy to have that glue bottle right close to me. I like to carry a small tri-square, you know, that's adjustable. And if I was doing a framing job, I'd probably just carry a speed square in the side pocket. But again, not much of my work is framing. I like to carry this small tri-square, and sometimes I will also carry, and this is a Craig multi-mark. And the thing I like about this the most is I can set it up like if I need to gauge some sort of reveal or anything like that. This is adjustable, I can set it, and then I can gauge off the edge. This can be used as a square, even sound 45 too, but it's really good as kind of a marking gauge. This is actually one of the most important tools I carry. You can tell I also carry a little bit of sawdust with me. It's a block plane, and it's a low angle block plane. You don't want to go buy a cheap one. There's probably not, unless you're going to a woodworking store, a block plane that you can buy that's going to be what you want. This is a Lee Nielsen. You know, there's also some other brands, but it's a low angle, and you're probably going to pay close to $100 for one of these, but they're really great when I'm doing trim work. A lot of times I will under bevel the joint to try and make sure I get a good joint. Sometimes I need to take a little bit off the back of a piece of trim, or even, you know, you can even use it just like to break an edge. But to me, a block plane is really, really important to carry, and they're not that, you know, not that heavy. Also, generally, if I'm doing cabinet work, I'm going to be carrying some pocket screws. If I was doing trim work, I'd probably have a few nails. Then just kind of finishing up, I always do carry a nail set. I like the, I think they call them 2/32 or 3/30, and it's a fairly small nail set. This also can kind of serve as a pin punch if I need to pop the hinges out of the door. And, you know, last of all, just one of these 5-in-1 screwdrivers that can, you know, be a nut setter and all those things, because it seems like fairly often I'm having to do some little thing, you know, maybe finishing setting a drywall screw, adjusting cabinet hinges, anything like that. So that's the things that I carry in my nail apron. And a nail apron really kind of becomes like an extension of your personality. It gets to where it just fits you. So I would encourage you, you know, whether you're just getting started, whether you've been doing it a while, to really invest in a good nail apron, and then make sure you take care of it, because it shows that you have pride in what you're doing.